Hey everybody, it's Mark from Thrive Ministries, and I'm just sending this out, a little special video for our trip to Scotland and Poland. This is going out especially to our prayer team and to our donors. You guys are so invested in Thrive. I just wanted to send this back to you so you get a little more inside scoop on what's going on in the ministry. So this trip, we started in Scotland. I went about 30-hour flight. It was about 5 flights actually. About 30 hours to get to Elgin. Elgin is on the north coast of Scotland. So I got there a little after midnight, got up the next day and early in the morning to drive to meet some pastors with Jeff Oakes. And so there wasn't much margin on the first part of this trip, although I am working hard to build margin into my trips because it's really important. But I met with Jeff. This is Jeff. Many of you know Jeff Oakes. He was part of Trinity for many years, and Sam, his dad, was an elder here, and we kind of worked together to plant Hosanna Fellowship many years ago, over 25 years ago, back up in Johnson City. And we've been working for a long time with Jeff and Kathy. They just moved to Elgin to take this church here, and this is a picture on the coast there. It was actually pretty cold. This is the church building, Elgin. It's called River Church Elgin, and it's an old Church of Scotland building. And I think we can look inside here. That's actually what it looks like inside. And this is the congregation that he works with. And they're just helping to revitalize this church. It was so great to be with Jeff and Kathy because it's always good to be with them. I've worked with Jeff in other countries before. In fact, I was in Mexico earlier this year with him, but they're just dear friends, and it's just great to be with them. And then also in their home, Jeff has his apron on there because we're doing a cookout there in their home, and this is part of the church that came over to his house that night. Actually, I led worship and spoke that Sunday morning in the church, and I spoke on lament and the process of going through your grief and that taking you to a new place, lament being a threshold. And I'll tell you a little more about the whole idea of lament on this trip because it was really key. But it was a great time to be with them. Also got to see a little bit of the countryside there in Scotland, but it was not a very long trip. So we went directly to Poland. This is a map of Poland I wanted to show you. And these pins that are on the map are actually they're actually the churches that are part of the network that our friend Andrzej Natuzak is overseeing. I was with Andrzej a good portion of this trip and in his churches. So I just want to show you where we went so you'll know. So we started in Warsaw, and then from Warsaw up to Białystok. I'll show you pictures from most of these places. Białystok up in the northeast, and then up to Olecko, which is on the very border of Russia. There's a non-contiguous part of Russia called Kaliningrad, which borders Poland there. And then we were right there 20 miles from the border. Back down to Gniezno, and then to Koło, and then to Płock, and then up to Gdansk on the North Sea, and then from Gdansk back down to Wisła on the very bottom where the Czech Republic border is, and then over to Poznań with Bartek and Daria, and then back to Warsaw. So we were all over the place in Poland. And one of the cool things that happened on this trip is that in Warsaw with my friend Mateo, we got to go into a recording studio where they were making a recording, which I think is really timely for the country right now. As you know, there are refugees, a lot of refugees there, 4 million now from now and from the previous war. Ukrainian refugees, and about 3 million of them have come in the last few months, just flooding into the country. And the Polish people have just opened their hearts and their borders to these people, and it's been amazing, especially considering the difficult history between the two countries. But they've been just very hospitable and cordial to them. So, but this is a group that are recording in a recording studio. This song, which is called Pamiętaj in Polish, Pamiętaj in Ukrainian, very similar words, but that means remember. So there were two singers singing it, a female Ukrainian singer and a female Polish singer, singing it in both languages. And this song says, remember, remember, don't forget their sacrifices, don't forget the pain they went through. Remember, but don't allow the bitterness to control you. Overcome evil with good. It is a really timely song right now for this nation. They're going to be releasing that, and I get to be there for that recording of it. Really very special time. In Warsaw, one of the churches there has these church outreaches, and so you can see outside of a subway station, this is a little tent they set up. They feed people, they give hot drinks, and they sing for 10 minutes to preach the gospel. Sing for 10 minutes to preach the gospel the whole evening. And so I got to also preach the gospel and share my story on the street there. And that's actually not a Catholic church, but an Orthodox church in the background. But right in the middle of Warsaw, this is happening. We went from Warsaw up to Białystok, and this is the picture of the pastor, Krzysztof, and his wife, Gosia, and their three children, and we stay in their house every time we go there. And we ministered in their church, and the churches there that we ministered to, most of the churches were about half Polish and half Ukrainian at this time. So it was great to have Yuri with us. It's great to have Yuri anytime, but especially because he speaks Russian and the Ukrainians understand Russian. It's very similar languages. And so he could communicate to them, he could minister in Russian, and also he could translate for us into Russian when we were ministering. So we ministered a lot to these refugees. Talk a little bit more about that in a minute. I was at the church in Białystok on Resurrection morning, Easter Sunday morning, and I was all ready to preach on the resurrection, because I love to preach on the resurrection because it's our hope. But the Holy Spirit the night before, I felt him speak to me and say, this is not the message. And I thought, the resurrection's the message, not just on Easter. It's always the message, right? But it wasn't. The message was lament. The message was I needed to speak on lament. And this was a pattern, not only in Scotland, but in every city that we went to. I think in Poland, I was asked either by people or by the Holy Spirit to minister on lament and grief and what happened last year with Melissa and the things that we went through and how God taught us through the Psalms to grieve. It was a very timely message for what's going on, especially with the refugees there. Can you imagine being displaced and not even knowing what's going on back home? The message about handling grief from the Psalms was amazing and very timely. But I have to tell you, it also was very emotional and very draining for me. And I had to have some time, toward the third or fourth week, where I had a little bit of time to just let the Lord minister to me for a couple of days. But this was the message for the whole trip, was this idea of lamenting. This is a group of people up in Olecko near the Russian border, really small group of leaders from that region. And I love these people. Been there a couple of times before, but I love them especially because nobody goes there. They're such a small, out-of-the-way place. It's not a main city where conferences are held. And so to be able to go up there and minister to them is special for them and special for us as well. And I wanted to let you see, I show you pictures about groups we minister to, and I show you pictures sometimes of sites that we see, but in reality, a big part of the trip is just travel. And so I just wanted to show you this is kind of reality
of what the trip was like. A lot of hours spent in cars and trains and buses, and even taxis sometimes. This is Yuri and I on a train, and look at that face. I mean, it's like, wouldn't you want to travel with that face? He's just awesome. He's just awesome. He's the perfect travel partner. He's low maintenance. He's high positivity. He's high in spiritual input, and he's always ready to serve, and he's just great. So that's great. We were together in Gniezno. Gniezno is one of the oldest cities in Poland, and this is a team on one of the churches there. There are 2 churches in Gniezno. It's 60,000 people, 2 churches. This is one of them. This is the actual leadership team of one of them. There's probably maybe 150, 200 Christians in the entire city, evangelical Christians. And so this is a young leadership team that are going to make a big difference there. So it was a joy to be able to meet with them and kind of walk through understanding how to grow in their knowledge and their skills and their character with the power of the Spirit at work with them. Another young group that Yuri and I ministered to in Colwo. These are just students, and they're little world changers. It was really fun to be with them. And I want to show you this one in Colwo. Also, there was refugees everywhere we went, but in Colwo we went to visit some refugees. This is a painting I took a picture of, a painting by a young Ukrainian woman who has 2 kids with her, left her husband and brothers behind. She is with her 2 children and another woman and her 2 children living in one room, sharing a bathroom with other families. Right now, displaced refugees, and they have to make a living somehow. And so one of the things that she's doing is she is painting, and she's doing online auctions so people can really donate. It's not so much buying the art as it is donating to their their needs. So she had this picture, and she was going to put it online and sell it. And I said, well, just let me take a picture of it, and I'll give you all the zloty in my pocket, and you can still have it to sell. And so I did. I gave her maybe $50 worth of Polish money. But if you know anything about the Ukrainian flag, this is, it's yellow on the bottom and blue on top. And so this is like a landscape of Ukraine, but it's got that feel of the Ukrainian flag. And so I'm going to print it and put it on my wall so it allows me to be remembered to pray for them. We went to another city called Płotsk. This is a leadership team in Płotsk. This is a pastor that I've never worked with before, though I met him last time Neil and I were in Poland doing a conference. So the pastor and his wife are down here in the corner, and Yuri, and then the leadership team at their church. We spent all day with them, and then we spent the next day ministering at the church. It was just a real joy. And then we were in Gdansk in the north with our friends. This is Philip and Ola Nertz, and they are working together with the Gorskis and Bartek and Daria with Evangelical Poland. They're missionaries to their own country. They're high caliber, high output, high productive people, and they're just a joy to be with. And this was actually not in the north. This is not in Gdansk. This is in the south, because we went from the north all the way to the south of Poland in the mountains there near the Czech border, and that's where we were at this point. We had hiked up to that mountain, actually. This is on the deck, or the outer little patio of their, I guess, 9th story apartment that they live in. Their apartment or flat is right across from the flat where Lech Walesa lived. Lech Walesa, the one who led the Solidarity movement, really right here in Gdansk. This was the place where the fall of communism began, right here in this city, in the shipyards, the linen shipyards here. And I actually did a coffee with Mark here on this balcony with Lech Walesa looking over my shoulder. But that's just a picture of it there. Another picture of Gdansk. We took a 40-minute walking tour, really fast walking tour down through Gdansk, and
It was a really brisk day, but it was great. We went then to Poznan, and in Poznan, we were with the leaders of two churches, Bartek and Darius Church, and another church where Melissa and I had ministered and done a parenting conference years ago. And these are the men. We did a men's conference about being a godly father and a godly husband. So that's what this was for. This was a 2-day conference, and these guys were really hungry, and it was a super blessing. I wanted to tell you one more thing about the ministry time there in Gdansk. Philip and Ola pulled together these leaders, and these are from maybe 5 different churches, even different denominations that came together. And this was such a strong ministry time. And in so much of this time in Poland especially, but also in Scotland, I was ministering on lament. The message of lament was so important here in Poland during this time, especially because of the refugees. And you can imagine you don't know what's going on. You're displaced. You don't know your future. You don't know if you have a home to go back to even. You don't know what's going on with your husbands or brothers, your loved ones. And they were so it was such a difficult time, but that whole ministry or message of lament was so strong. And here in this group, that message, but also the message of growing in knowledge and skills and character, the know, be, do message that I do so many places. These brothers and sisters were so hungry. And that synergy that happens when the word in season meets people who are hungry and ready to hear it, it was really one of the most powerful ministry times that I've ever done. And that was on the heels of earlier that day doing 6.5 hours of Strengths Finder training as well. So this was really a powerful time. So I wanted to tell you guys just one more thing that was special. Even though I ministered a lot from my own pain of what happened last year, what I'm still walking through and lamenting and learning how to grieve the death of Melissa, that was such an important part of this trip, and it really resonated so much. But it did take like a really emotional toll on me as well, and the Lord had to really minister to me. I'm really grateful for your prayers for me, because they really carried me through this. But one other thing that happened is, I just have to show you this as I'm closing here, is that this is actually behind my house. We planted a memorial garden for Melissa. It's some rocks, some plants, some flowering shrubs, and these tulips, which she loves. Tulips, it's her favorite flower, and those yellow tulips came up. And this is the day I left for Scotland. That was in my backyard. I got to Scotland, and in Kathy Oak's house, I found yellow tulips. She just bought tulips that day, and they happened to be yellow, and she put them in there. I said, "You're kidding. Let me show you this picture. I just left," and it was Melissa's favorite flower, and that was really special. And then we got to Białystok, and on the table in Białystok were these fresh cut yellow roses. And then the week after that, I got to Gdansk, a different part of the country. I walked into the place where you and I were going to be staying in an apartment of a couple there, and there were these fresh cut yellow tulips, and I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it. And then we got all the way down to the very south of Poland in Wisła, and the place where we stayed, I looked outside the window in the morning, and here's what I saw. These yellow tulips followed me around all over Poland. Just little kisses, from the Father, just little hugs, and just saying, even though you're ministering out of this hurt, I'm with you, and Melissa's with you in this ministry as well. And so many of the places that we were there in Poland, Melissa and I had been together. Many of the people also knew Melissa. So I wanted to show you one more picture, and this is the picture of Bartek and Daria's church. It's
it's growing and growing. I ministered there on Sunday morning, and one of the things that happened there is that a man came up to me after the church service and said, "I'm so sorry to hear about your wife, but I want you to know that my wife and I were at the conference that you did 5 years ago, parenting conference, and that conference really inspired us, and we now have a ministry to married couples. And I just want you to know that that was an inspiration to us." And so that was a real blessing too. So this was a really fruitful trip. Very difficult in some ways and very beautiful in some ways. Like everything else, it's beautiful and it's brutal. It's brutal, right? And so I just wanted to let you guys know a little more about what happened. Thank you again so much. My intention is to do this every single trip. Our next trip is in Africa, West Africa. That'll be at the end of June, 1st of July. And so you'll get some information about that too. So, but thank you so much for your prayers. Thank you so much for your support. You helped make this possible, and God is opening doors, and a lot of people were encouraged, and there was a lot of real strong spiritual activity and spiritual seeds planted, and it's all also accredited to your account. And I love you guys. Bless you.